So David Rhys-Jones, thanks so much for doing this, mate.
No, not a problem. Pleasure. I've actually seen a few of them, Sam. And
which ones you seen?
I saw the Bruce Dool one, and that was sensational. Not much said, of course, but
I couldn't get a word in, Reece. It was unbelievable. 1985, you arrive at Carlton. So 1985 to 92, you're there. 106 games. How did you end up from Sydney to Carlton? What happened there that pre-season?
At the end of 1984, I had a decision to make of what I wanted to do, and I basically rang my accountant and said, can you speak to Hawthorn and Carlton? He basically got back to me and said, financially it's going to be a lot better for you going to Carlton. So I went and spoke to Carlton, and so they organised a meeting that afternoon with David Parkin. Spoke to him, and that was it. I actually signed with them within a day.
A day?
So yeah,
you just sent shudders up my spine, Reece, that in 86 and 87 grand finals that you could have been in the brown and gold.
85 was the hardest year of football I've ever had.
Why was it so hard?
And well, you're going from a club that's struggling to a premiership club, and you got triple premiership players running around in the twos at that stage.
So it was a culture shock for you coming from South Melbourne to Carlton. Who some of the names in those early years at Carlton that were supportive, Reece?
Oh look, I was always good mates with Wayne Johnson and Mark McClure and Jimmy Buckley were probably the three main ones.
It's very surprising that you just gravitated towards those three, Reece.
Yeah, well,
what it was.
they enjoyed a lot of the off-field activities that I enjoyed, and birds of a feather, I suppose.
On behalf of all Carlton supporters, though, Reece, what a shout that is! You, David Rhys-Jones, Mark McClure, Jimmy Buckley, and Wayne Johnson. Is it just Potts, or what about when you went to the next level?
Yeah, well, you'd have to at some stage. You can only drink so much beer, can't you? But then again, if you're Jimmy, you can just keep going. But
what was when you went to the hardest stuff?
I always went to the Scotch and Coke, yeah,
Great.
Scotch and Coke, and then the Mark McClure and milk at the end, I suppose, just to top it off.
The Mark McClure and milk.
Yeah,
all right.
The old McClure and milk. That's when you knew, the end was near.
Yeah. It's quite a good idea to put a lining on your stomach at the end of the night, Reece. A very good idea. But what's the memory of your debut for Carlton?
My debut for Carlton was probably more memorable for someone else's debut for Footscray, and I was playing on a half-forward flank, and I was out on that half-forward flank for the whole time and on my own, and no one come near me from the opposition. Anyway, after the game, David Parkin's got us all in the room at the end, and he's looked around and he said, and who was playing on Brad Hardy? That Brad Hardy, he's killed us today. Who was playing on him? And I've looked around and I said, well, I wasn't playing on anyone, so it was probably me.
That was your defence?
He got 3 votes for that, and that probably helped him win the Brownlow medal that year, so Brad owes me.
And you finished with Parkin as well, so he had 1 year with Parkin, and then you were still at him when he came back.
The last year of his first stint, and the first year of his last stint,
And how was he with you? How did you get on? Because I wasn't
a very coachable person, and I probably went against everything David Parkin stands for. I was a drinker and a smoker, and I liked a good time. So
I remember as a Carlton supporter in your last year, just going, why isn't Reece playing? Why isn't Reece playing? And I this is what sticks in my mind, is that David Parkin in the press was asked about David Rhys-Jones, and Parkin would always say that David Rhys-Jones is in our best 18. He's in our best 18. And I remember you saying once, and tell me if it's it's urban myth, but I remember you being quoted as saying, that's great to know that David thinks I'm in the best 18. Can you tell me when he's going to start playing his best 18? Do you remember saying something like that, Reece?
Well, I probably would have. I mean, I'm pretty... I just say it as it is, and I always have done it.
How old were you when you retired?
30.
It's a young
30,
man.
So yeah, not many people retired. I mean, everyone got the tap on the shoulder as Wes or Parko or whoever. I was actually with Jimmy Buckley the day he got tiptoed when we had to go over to Parko's place, and I was in the car and I hid under the dashboard because I thought I didn't want him to see me. He might have got rid of me at the same time. So
I know you said you're uncoachable. That'll come as no surprise to anyone. Was Wolsey a good coach for you though? Did he appreciate your skills and what he had, mate? Did he get the best out of you?
Yeah, well, look, we had what you call a hate-hate relationship, I suppose. and we didn't like each other too much, and a lot of that once again was Wolsey was a school teacher and I hated school, and so was Parker, so I was up against it before I started, and I wasn't the most teachable person, I suppose.
You know, when you put it like that, it kind of all makes sense that these iconic teams of the 80s, all through the 80s, had great players, characters though, and the club, in their wisdom, saw fit to put kind of school teachers in charge of it, in charge of naughty kids.
And in some ways, I think we needed that.
Yeah.
And for a lot of it, I played in spite of Wolsey. I wanted to sharpen up him, so he didn't intimidate me as much. I was probably getting on with Wolsey better in '89 than I had in the entire time before that.
Yeah.
And they sacked him. When Robert threw me back in '87 in that grand final on the Brereton, and I think that probably, I reckon him and me were the only two people who thought that would have worked.
Yeah,
and yet there was a surprise to me. It was a shock to me. But
did you know in the week leading up, Rhys?
I found out the Thursday night. So just a normal go in the room, and there it is on the board, and oh well, that's it. That's my job this week. I found out later that I think there's 5 or 6 of them on match committee, and Wolsey was the only one who voted for it. So everyone else on the match committee said no. But on the Thursday night, they said, "Well, you're the coach, and you know if you want to go ahead with this, that's it," sort of thing. And thank God he did.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd probably just be known as that dickhead who got reported 25 times.
Well, yeah, you probably wouldn't even be in the car with me, Rhys. I wouldn't have even bothered.
Exactly.
Lucky. So in hindsight, lucky Wolsey's vote in match committee counted for 6 votes. Rhys, isn't that good to find out?
Yeah.
So I didn't even bother, mate. I had too much respect. I wanted to talk about other things. But how many times reported?
I was only 25 reported, and I was up there.
25 times the umpire stopped, blew the whistle, and looked at the 25 times.
And wasn't that ridiculous? Why did they have to turn around and look at your number?
I think they knew by then.
They knew. I reckon they had it written in the notepad before the game started, and they just wrote what I did.
25 times, Rhys. That's a lot of time. That's a lot, man.
It was. I put it this way: I didn't plan many events on Monday nights.
Any injustices in there, Rhys?
Oh, no. Probably a few more that should have been in there, but. No, look, I was guilty every time. It was just, but it was. I don't know. I got off 14 times.
Yeah, that was.
So I was pretty good in the tribunal. I remember the first time I got reported. It was with South Melbourne, and they actually. I didn't have a suit. They went and bought me a suit. They made me get my hair cut. They dressed me up like a choir boy, basically, and sent me in there. And I was like this kid, and butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. This skinny kid, and they're going. I think I got reported, 5 times in that match, but. The tribunal were looking at me going, how could this young fellow, possibly do that? Anyway, they ended up giving me 4 weeks for hitting the runner that day. The guy's name is Peter Smith, who's a Melbourne runner, who happened to be Norm Smith's son.
Well, he deserved it then. He deserved it then, Rhys.
What about that?
That's
I whacked his kid and won his medal.
Circle of life.
That's it.
The 87 grand final. Yes, you win the Norm Smith and it's a great day, but I remember Jono kicked the first 2 goals, he knocked out Dipper, he didn't let the umpire bounce the ball, he did all that.
Yeah.
And you win the Norm Smith. It was like a perfect day for me, but did you feel good all day, throughout the game? What are your memories of it?
Well, you never felt good against Hawthorn. It wasn't until about the 15-minute mark of the last quarter, bro. I think I yelled at one of our players and, get back and pick him up, or, something like that. And Dermot actually turned around and said to me, what are you worried about, mate? You've won the game.
Right.
It was such a hot day, but grand finals being grand finals, you just got to keep going to that final siren blows. I still think the game is pretty simple, and I just think that some people try and make the game too hard. And at the end of the day, it's only a game. Get out there, put the ball through the goals more than the opposition, get the score on the board, win the game. It's pretty simple.
Well, David Rhys-Jones, you're a great character, but also a great player of the Carlton Football Club. And mate, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
No problems at all. No, thank you, Sam. It's been a treat.
4 weeks for hitting the runner.
True story.